The letter arrived on a Tuesday morning, printed on Ridgemont HOA letterhead, signed in blue ink by President Valerie Chen. Effective immediately, your private well must be registered as a shared community resource under Article 12, Section 4 of the amended bylaws. Failure to comply within 14 days will result in fines of $500 per day. I read it twice standing at my mailbox. Then I looked across the street at Valerie's house, the one with the irrigation system that ran 3 times a week, the koi pond, the spray fountain in the front yard, the one connected to the municipal water line that served her entire block. My well was 340 feet deep, drilled in 1987, and it had never been anyone's property but mine. I folded the letter, slid it into my jacket pocket, and walked back to my workshop. I had calls to make. But first, I wanted to look at something I hadn't thought about in years. The original water district map filed with Kern County in 1994, the year this subdivision was developed. The year Valerie's block was connected to municipal supply, and mine wasn't. That map was going to matter more than she knew. Let me take you back 3 weeks, to the morning this all started. I was replacing a pressure gauge on the wellhead when Valerie's white Lexus pulled into my driveway. She stepped out in her usual board meeting outfit, blazer, statement necklace, tablet under one arm. She didn't greet me. She walked straight to the well enclosure and stood there like she was inspecting livestock. "Alan," she said, not looking at me, "we need to talk about your water usage." I set down my wrench. "What about it?" "You're drawing from an unregulated source. That's a problem for the community. It's a private well, on my property. It's been here since before this HOA existed." She tapped something on her tablet. "The board has been reviewing infrastructure assets. Your well services a lot that falls within HOA boundaries. That makes it subject to community oversight." "No, it doesn't." She smiled, the smile she used at board meetings when someone questioned her. "Article 12, Section 4. Shared resources. That applies to common areas. This isn't a common area. We'll see." She turned and walked back to her car. Before she drove off, she said through the open window, 14 days, Alan. Register it, or we'll register it for you." I didn't argue. I just watched her leave, then went inside and pulled the deed. My property was Lot 14, Ridgemont Estates Phase 2, purchased in 1996. The deed included mineral and water rights, explicit language, notarized, recorded with the county. The well had been drilled by the original landowner in 1987, 9 years before the HOA was incorporated. I owned it outright. There was no ambiguity. But Valerie wasn't interested in ambiguity. She was interested in control. The next board meeting was the following Thursday. I didn't usually attend, hadn't been to one in 4 years, but I went to this one. 30 people in the community center, most of them looking at their phones. Valerie ran the meeting from a podium like she was chairing a corporate earnings call. When she got a new business, she brought up infrastructure optimization. She put a slide on the screen, a map of the neighborhood with my property highlighted in red. "This residence operates a private well that draws from the aquifer beneath HOA-managed land. Given ongoing drought conditions, the board believes it's prudent to bring this resource under community management to ensure equitable access." Someone in the back asked, "Whose well is it?" "Alan Driscoll's. Lot 14. A few heads turned toward me. I raised my hand. Valerie acknowledged me with visible reluctance. "That well was drilled in 1987, I said. "It predates the HOA by 9 years. I own the water rights. They're on the deed." "We're not disputing your deed, Alan. We're talking about responsible management of a shared aquifer." "It's not shared. It's under my lot. Aquifers don't respect property lines. Neither does municipal water supply, Valerie. But nobody's asking you to share your tap." The room got quiet. Valerie's jaw tightened. "This isn't about me." "Then what's it about?" She didn't answer. She moved to the next agenda item. After the meeting, a neighbor named Ron stopped me in the parking lot. He was older, retired, the kind of guy who'd lived here long enough to remember when Ridgemont was just dirt roads and surveyor stakes. "You know why she's doing this, right?" he said. "Enlighten me." "Her block's on municipal water. Expensive as hell, especially with the drought surcharges. Yours isn't. You've got free water, and she's got a $600 monthly bill." I looked back at the community center. Through the window, I could see Valerie talking to 2 other board members, gesturing emphatically. "She can't just take my well, Ron. She can't. But she'll try. and she'll make your life miserable while she does. He was right about the second part. The letter arrived 6 days later. I sat in my truck that evening, engine off, looking at Valerie's house across the street. Every sprinkler head running, water sheeting across her driveway into the gutter. Then I opened my phone and called my attorney. "Tom," I said when he picked up, "I need you to pull something for me." Tom Farrell had handled my property closing in 1996 and 3 boundary disputes since then. He didn't waste time on pleasantries. When I explained what Valerie was trying to do, he was quiet for 5 seconds. "She actually put that in writing," he said. "HOA letterhead. Sign. Alan, that's not just wrong. That's actionable." "I know, but I need you to pull the 1994 Water District Agreement first. The one between Ridgemont Estates and Kern County Municipal." "Why?" "Because I want to know exactly who's connected to what before this goes any further." He said he'd have it by Friday. The document arrived as a PDF on Thursday night. 22 pages, dense with legal descriptions and annexation maps. I printed it, spread it across my kitchen table, and started reading. Ridgemont Estates had been developed in 2 phases. Phase 1, Valerie's block and the surrounding streets, was connected to municipal water in 1994 under a binding service agreement. The developer had paid the annexation fee. Every property in Phase 1 was contractually obligated to use county water and pay the corresponding rates. Phase 2, my block, had been developed 2 years later by a different contractor. That contractor had opted out of municipal service, which was allowed at the time under county code. Phase 2 lots were sold with independent water rights. Some owners drilled wells. Some trucked water in. Some connected later at their own expense. But the key detail, the one that made my chest tighten when I read it, was this. Phase 1's municipal service was contingent on maintaining a minimum number of active connections. If too many properties disconnected, the county could renegotiate the rate structure or, in extreme cases, terminate service to the block entirely. I read that section 3 times. Then I called Tom. "Did you see paragraph 8? I said. "I did. If Phase 1 loses connections, the county can pull their service." "Correct. How many connections would they have to lose?" "It's percentage-based. 20% of the original hookups." I did the math. Phase 1 had 42 homes. 20% was 8. "Tom, how many properties in Phase 1 are still owner-occupied versus rental?" "No idea." "What?" "Because if enough people in Phase 1 decided municipal water wasn't worth the cost and disconnected, Valerie's whole block could lose service." "Alan, where are you going with this?" "Nowhere yet. Just thinking out loud." I hung up and sat with the map for a long time. Then I drove to Ron's house. He answered the door in a bathrobe, holding a crossword puzzle. "It's 9:30, Alan." "I know. I need to ask you something. How many people on Valerie's block are pissed about their water bills?" He squinted at me. "Most of them." "What?" "Just curious." He studied me for a moment, then smiled slowly. "You're up to something." "I'm not up to anything. I'm protecting my property." "Uh-huh." He leaned against the doorframe. "What do you need?" "Names. People in Phase 1 who might be interested in a conversation about water costs." Ron gave me 4 names. I contacted all of them over the next week. Casual, low-key, no pitch. I just asked what they were paying for water. The answers ranged from $480 to $710 per month, depending on usage. Every single one of them called it highway robbery. I didn't suggest anything. I just listened. Meanwhile, Valerie's 14-day deadline came and went. On day 15, I received a violation notice, $500 fine for noncompliance, due immediately. I didn't pay it. I forwarded it to Tom with a single line, "Document this." On day 18, Valerie sent a crew to my property, 2 men in Ridgemont HOA polos with clipboards, asking to inspect my well. I met them at the gate. "You have a work order?" I asked. The older one held up a printed email from Valerie. "We're here to assess the well for community registration." "That's not a work order. That's an email. You're not coming onto my property." "Sir, the HOA has authorized. The HOA has no authority over a private well on private land. If you step past that gate, I'm calling the sheriff." They looked at each other. Then they left. Valerie called me an hour later, voice tight. "You're obstructing a lawful inspection." "There's nothing lawful about it, Valerie. You don't have a warrant, you don't have an easement, and you don't have jurisdiction." What you have is a bad interpretation of your own bylaws and a letter from a lawyer you probably didn't consult. I've consulted our attorney extensively. Then he's lying to you, or you're lying to me." She hung up. That night, Tom called. "She's filing a civil complaint. Just got the notice. She's asking a judge to compel you to allow HOA access to the well for assessment and regulatory registration. Let her file." "Alan, you sound calm." "I am calm." "Why?" "Because I just got off the phone with the Kern County Water District. Turns out they're very interested in complaints about improper resource allocation, especially when it involves HOA overreach on private wells." "What did you tell them?" "The truth. That an HOA president is trying to seize a private well while running 3 irrigation zones on municipal supply during a drought." Tom was quiet. "Then, you're playing chess. I'm playing property law. And Valerie just opened discovery." The hearing was set for July 9th. Valerie showed up with the HOA's attorney, a man named Porter who wore a suit too expensive for a neighborhood dispute. I came with Tom and a folder. Judge Brennan was a woman in her 60s who'd been on the bench long enough to spot nonsense before it finished talking. She read Valerie's complaint in silence, then looked up. "Ms. Chen, you're asking the court to compel access to a private well based on shared aquifer management." "Yes, Your Honor. The well draws from groundwater that affects the entire community." "Does the HOA own any part of the aquifer?" "We manage the land above it." "You manage common areas." "Mr. Driscoll's lot is in a common area, is it?" Porter stood. "Your Honor, Article 12, Section 4 of the HOA bylaws provides." "I've read your bylaws, Mr. Porter. They provide authority over shared infrastructure. A well drilled on private property, predating your HOA's incorporation, and explicitly covered by recorded water rights, isn't shared infrastructure. It's private property." Porter tried to pivot. "The drought conditions create an obligation." "To do what?" "Seize a resident's legal water source." Valerie's face was flushed. "He's using an unregulated well while the rest of us pay for municipal." Judge Brennan held up a hand. "So this is about cost." The courtroom went silent. "Your Honor," Valerie said carefully, "it's about equity. Ms. Chen, Mr. Driscoll's property was sold with water rights. He drilled a legal well. You're connected to municipal supply by a binding agreement your developer signed in 1994. Those are different situations. The court doesn't enforce equity between voluntary and involuntary expenses." She dismissed the complaint. Valerie walked out without looking at me. But I wasn't done. That afternoon, I filed a formal harassment complaint with the county, citing the unauthorized inspection attempt, the baseless fines, and the civil action. I attached every email, every letter, every violation notice. Tom delivered it personally. 2 weeks later, the county water district sent an auditor to Ridgemont Estates. They were investigating complaints about wasteful usage during drought restrictions. Valerie's property was flagged for running irrigation systems outside permitted hours. So were 3 other homes on her block, all board members. The fines were $1,200 each. Ron called me the night the notices went out. "You're a dangerous man, Alan." "I didn't report her for the water usage." "Who did?" "No idea. Could have been anyone. She's not popular." But the real shift came in September. For homeowners in Phase 1, people I'd talked to, people drowning in water bills, formally disconnected from municipal supply. 2 drilled wells. 2 installed cisterns and started trucking water. It was legal. The county allowed it. That dropped Phase 1's active connections below the threshold. The county sent Ridgemont Estates Phase 1 a renegotiation notice. The rate structure would be recalculated based on reduced subscriber volume. New rates would take effect January 1st. The projected increase, 28%. Valerie called an emergency board meeting. I didn't attend, but Ron did. He told me later that she'd stood at the podium, visibly rattled, and tried to frame the disconnections as a community betrayal. Someone in the audience had asked why people were leaving municipal supply in the first place. Valerie didn't have a good answer. By December, 2 more families had disconnected. The rate increase climbed to 34%. Valerie's own water bill was projected to hit $940 per month. She resigned from the board on December 18th, citing personal reasons. The resignation letter was 3 sentences long. The new board president, a retired engineer named Marcia Ruiz, called me in January. "Alan, I want to apologize for what happened last year. That should never have been pursued. Appreciated, Marcia. For what it's worth, we're reviewing Article 12. It's going to be rewritten to clarify that private wells aren't subject to HOA authority. Good. And Alan? Off the record. Yeah. Valerie's selling her house. Heard she's moving to a condo in Bakersfield. I didn't say anything. There was nothing to say. I stood in my yard that evening, garden hose running into the vegetable beds I'd planted in the spring. The sun was setting orange over the hills. The well pump hummed quietly under the enclosure, steady and reliable, the way it had been for 37 years. Across the street, Valerie's house was dark. The for sale sign went up 2 days later. I didn't take her well. I didn't take anything from her. I just refused to let her take what was mine. And when she pushed hard enough, the system she'd relied on to control everyone else turned around and showed her exactly what it cost to play games with people's property. The water still runs clear. The pressure's still strong. And my bill, as always, is zero.